The streetlights flickered on as Marcus walked home. The cool evening air filled with the distant hum of city life and the crunch of gravel under his worn sneakers. At 17, Marcus carried himself with the quiet confidence of a young man who knew his worth, even when the world around him tried to tell him otherwise. His hoodie was pulled low, and his earbuds were playing the rhythm of a song he'd learned to find comfort in. But tonight, comfort was the furthest thing from his reach. A sudden flash of red and blue cut through the twilight. A police cruiser rolled up beside him, lights piercing the fading light without warning. The car stopped abruptly. The door swung open, and Officer Daniel stepped out, his gaze cold, his stance rigid and unyielding. "Hey, stop right there." Marcus froze, the music cutting off abruptly as his heart tightened in his chest. The officer's tone was sharp, filled with suspicion before a single word was exchanged. "What are you doing out here so late?" Daniels demanded, eyes scanning Marcus from head to toe, as if searching for the smallest hint of guilt. Marcus's voice was steady. "Just heading home, officer." But the words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Daniels moved closer, the night air thick with tension, his hand resting near his holster, a silent warning that this was no ordinary stop. Around them, neighbors peeked through curtains and cracked doors, the quiet buzz of their curiosity adding weight to the moment. "You live around here?" Daniels pressed, eyes narrowing. Marcus nodded, muscles tense but face calm. "Yes, sir." The officer's lips curled into a smirk. "We've had some trouble with thefts lately." "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" The accusation hung like a dark cloud. Marcus shook his head slowly, refusing to be baited. "No, officer, I don't." Danielle's expression hardened. "You don't look like you belong here. What are you really up to?" The words were laced with disdain, a quiet reflection of the prejudice too many young black men know all too well. Marcus could feel the weight of assumptions pressing down on him. He knew this was more than a routine stop. It was a test of patience and resilience. Daniels commanded him to place his hands on the hood of the cruiser, the rough metal cool beneath his palms. Marcus complied, the world narrowing to the officer's suspicious gaze and the silent witnesses watching from shadows. The minutes dragged as Daniel searched for any sign of guilt, any reason to justify the harassment. But Marcus remained composed, eyes forward, heart pounding beneath a calm surface. Just when it seemed the confrontation might spiral out of control, Marcus reached inside his jacket and pulled out a gleaming FBI badge. The scene froze in an instant. The stunned silence was deafening. Daniel stepped back, eyes wide, his arrogance shattered by the undeniable truth. Marcus's voice cut through the tension, calm and steady. "Maybe now you'll think twice before assuming who I am." The neighbors watching exchanged glances. The power dynamic shifted palpably. What began as unjust suspicion had turned into a moment of reckoning. This was more than a confrontation. It was a lesson in respect and humanity, one that would resonate far beyond the street corner. The officer's jaw tightened, his eyes darting between the badge and Marcus's calm face, disbelief wrestling with the reality that this was no ordinary teenager. The murmurs from nearby windows grew louder, whispers spreading like wildfire as people processed what they had just witnessed. Daniels cleared his throat, struggling to mask the shake in his voice. "I didn't know." But Marcus held up a hand, silencing him with a look that spoke of years of weariness and strength far beyond his age. "It's not about me," Marcus said quietly. "It's about everyone who's been judged before a word was said, every young man who's been stopped, searched, and harassed just for walking down the street." Daniel swallowed, the arrogance drained, replaced by a reluctant respect. But the damage was done. Marcus's story was already spreading beyond the street. Caught on a neighbor's phone, shared across social media with hashtags like #JusticeForMarcus and #KnowYourRights. The video sparked fierce debate, officers defending their duty, communities demanding change, and a young man at the center of a storm he never asked for. But Marcus didn't want fame or sympathy. He wanted change. He wanted officers to see the person, not the stereotype. He wanted justice to mean fairness, not fear. And as the cruiser's lights dimmed and the night reclaimed the street, one truth lingered in the air. Respect is owed to every soul, no matter their age, color, or story, because you never know who you're talking to. The days after the street confrontation blurred into a whirlwind of attention and unrest. Marcus had returned to school, but the halls felt heavier, charged with whispers and stares. Some classmates looked at him differently, some with newfound respect, others with suspicion. The video of Officer Daniels harassing him, then recoiling at the FBI badge had gone viral, igniting conversations far beyond the neighborhood. But Marcus wasn't just a viral sensation. He was a young man caught in the eye of a storm that demanded more than silence. At home, his mother watched the news with clenched fists and a heart heavy with both pride and fear. "You did the right thing, Marcus," she told him quietly, "but the world isn't always ready for truth." Marcus nodded, knowing her words held the weight of reality. He was no stranger to the harsh glare of prejudice, but now the stakes were higher. The police department couldn't ignore the backlash. Officer Daniels was placed on paid leave pending an internal investigation, a move that divided the community. Some hailed it as progress. Others saw it as a mere gesture. Too little, too late. Marcus was called to testify before the city's police oversight board. The room was sterile, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as he sat across from officers and officials, their faces unreadable masks of authority. As he recounted the night, his voice remained steady, but inside, the memories cut deep. He described the feeling of being targeted, the humiliation of being assumed guilty without cause, the weight of history pressing down like an invisible hand. His words echoed in the silent room, and when he finished, a few members nodded in solemn agreement, but others exchanged uneasy glances. The public watched closely as the investigation unfolded. Protesters gathered outside the police station, signs raised high. "Justice for Marcus," "Stop racial profiling," "Respect our youth." The atmosphere was electric, a mix of hope, anger, and determination. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels' supporters rallied too, insisting he was a good cop misunderstood, a man unfairly judged by a viral video snapshot. The tension threatened to split the community in two. Marcus knew that this wasn't just about one officer or one encounter. It was a battle against systemic bias that had stained generations. In the days that followed, Marcus received messages from other young people sharing their own stories of harassment, fear, and resilience. Some thanked him for speaking out. Others warned him of the dangers he now faced. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, heavier than ever, but he refused to back down. At school, the drama was relentless. Teachers urged calm, counselors offered support, but Marcus could see the invisible lines drawn. Some students sided with him. Others distanced themselves, afraid or unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths. Daniels' absence left a void in the precinct, but rumors swirled that he was planning a fight back, claiming his rights were being trampled and his reputation tarnished. The police union threw their weight behind him, preparing for a legal battle. The media spotlight sharpened, painting Marcus alternately as a hero or a troublemaker. Marcus tried to focus on his studies, on basketball, on the life he wanted to live, but the conflict shadowed every step. One afternoon, as he walked home, a group of older teens blocked his path. They sneered, taunting him about the incident, their words sharp and cruel. Marcus stood firm, his gaze steady, refusing to engage, but the threat lingered. He was reminded again that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it. Meanwhile, inside the police department, the investigation heated up. Officers were interviewed, dashcam footage reviewed, and Daniels' conduct scrutinized. Marcus's lawyer prepared for the hearing, knowing the importance of every word and every detail. The city council called for reforms, mandatory bias training, increased community oversight, clearer protocols for stops and searches. Some officers welcomed the changes. Others resisted. The community was watching, waiting for justice not just to be served, but to be seen. During the hearing, Daniels took the stand. His testimony was defensive, laced with frustration. He insisted he was doing his job, that Marcus had been uncooperative, that the badge had surprised him, but didn't justify the video's portrayal. Marcus listened quietly, then when it was his turn, spoke with unwavering clarity. "I was just a kid walking home," he said. "I didn't deserve to be treated like a criminal before a word was spoken. You don't get to decide who is innocent based on fear or skin color." The room fell silent. His words were a beacon, a challenge to an institution in need of change. As the hearing concluded, the board faced a difficult decision. They voted to reprimand Daniels, mandate extensive retraining, and increase accountability measures. The community reacted with mixed emotions, some relief, some frustration that justice wasn't swifter or harsher. Marcus understood that progress was slow and imperfect, but resolved to keep pushing. The conflict had revealed deep wounds, but also a growing strength within the community to demand better. Marcus's story had become more than a single moment. It was a catalyst, a spark igniting a larger fight for dignity and respect. And as he walked the streets now, with the badge tucked safely away but the memory ever present, Marcus carried with him the hope that one day, no young man would have to prove his worth to survive a simple walk home. Months had passed since the confrontation that thrust Marcus into the spotlight, yet the weight of the past lingered like a shadow at every corner. The police department's reforms were announced with fanfare, new policies promising change, but the reality was far more complicated. Marcus had become a symbol, a rallying cry, but also a target. One evening, as Marcus walked home to the same streets where the encounter began, a black SUV pulled up alongside him, tinted windows hiding the faces within. The door opened, and a man stepped out, a federal agent, calm but urgent. "Marcus, we need to talk," he said. Confused but cautious, Marcus followed him to a nearby cafe, where whispers of a new investigation filled the air. It turned out Daniels was not done. Behind the scenes, he was orchestrating a smear campaign, planting false stories, and digging into Marcus's background. But what Daniels didn't know was Marcus's own secret, a part of his life carefully guarded from the world. Marcus was no ordinary teen. He was part of an FBI mentorship program, groomed for leadership and trained in the art of justice from the inside. His badge wasn't just a prop. It was a testament to years of dedication and a promise to fight systemic wrongs. The federal agent handed Marcus a folder containing evidence of Daniels' attempts to sabotage him, emails and recordings revealing a network of resistance within a department determined to silence voices like Marcus's. Marcus's calm resolve hardened into fierce determination. He shared this new revelation with community leaders, activists, and the media, turning the tide once again. But the twist didn't end there. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Daniels' actions were not isolated. Several officers were implicated in similar schemes, harassment cover-ups, and abuse of power cloaked beneath badges. Marcus's fight had unveiled a web far more tangled and dangerous than anyone anticipated. At a tense public hearing, Daniels faced charges not only for his conduct toward Marcus, but for a pattern of misconduct. He attempted to deflect blame, accusing Marcus of deception and manipulation, but the evidence was damning. The courtroom crackled with tension as Marcus took the stand once more, his voice steady but charged with the weight of truth. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's been silenced or broken by a system that fears accountability." The final twist came when a respected senior officer stepped forward, breaking ranks to testify against Daniels and others. His testimony confirmed systemic failures and ignited calls for comprehensive reform across the entire force. Marcus's journey became a beacon of courage and change, showing that even in the darkest moments, truth could prevail. Yet, amidst the victory, Marcus remained humble. He knew the path ahead was long, that change would require constant vigilance and collective effort. His story was no longer just his own. It was a call to action for all who believed in justice, dignity, and the power of standing up when it matters most. And as he walked the neighborhood once more, the familiar streets felt different, less threatening, charged instead with hope. The badge in his pocket was not just a symbol of authority, but a reminder that respect and humanity must always come first. The journey from that 10th Street corner to this moment of reckoning had tested Marcus in ways few could understand. The weight of his experience was not just personal, but profoundly communal. He had become a symbol, not by choice but by necessity, a living testament to the fight against injustice that shadowed too many lives. As the city gathered in a packed auditorium for the final community forum on police reform, Marcus stood before a sea of faces, families, activists, officers, and officials, all brought together by a shared desire for change. His voice, steady and clear, filled the room as he recounted the long road traveled, the battles fought, and the victory's hard-won. He spoke not with bitterness, but with hope, challenging each listener to see beyond stereotypes and fears. Respect isn't something you earn by fitting a mold, he said. It's a right everyone deserves, simply because we're human. No badge, no uniform, no title should make you feel less than that. The room was silent, hanging on his every word. His story had sparked reforms. Yes, mandatory bias training, improved accountability, community policing initiatives. But the real victory was in the heart's change, the conversations begun, the barriers broken. Officers who once viewed Marcus with suspicion now saw him with respect. Neighbors once divided now stood united. Yet Marcus understood that true justice was a continuous effort, not a destination. It required vigilance, empathy, and courage, values he carried with every step. Outside the forum, Marcus walked the familiar streets, now lined with murals depicting faces like his own, symbols of resilience and pride. Children played freely, unburdened by fear, their laughter balmed to wounds old and new. In his pocket, the FBI badge gleamed, a reminder of responsibility, not privilege. As night fell and the city lights shimmered, Marcus reflected on the journey that had begun with suspicion and ended with transformation. The lesson was clear. Injustice thrives in silence, but truth has the power to shatter walls. Every person's story matters. Every voice deserves to be heard, and every life commands respect. His final message, spoken with quiet strength, echoed in the hearts of those who listen and beyond. Judge no one by the color of their skin or the weight of a badge. See the person. Hear their story. Treat everyone like they matter, because they do. And with that, Marcus stepped into the future, not as a victim of injustice, but as a beacon of hope, a living promise that change is possible when we stand together, unwavering and unafraid. If Marcus's story moved you, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful true story about justice, courage, and standing up to injustice. Remember, respect is a right, not a privilege. Let's keep this conversation alive.